After the attacks of September 11th, thousands of rescue workers risked their lives to comb through the wreckage, to look for survivors. And then thousands more joined in the cleanup. And as you can see from these pictures, they breathed in all kinds of dust. And that dust can make you sick. It can cause lung disease now, maybe cancer later. To compensate those workers, Congress gave New York about $1 billion. Who would get it? About 10,000 people eventually joined a lawsuit claiming that working at Ground Zero made them sick. And last fall, the lawyers got together and settled the case. And in that settlement, guess who got about $400 million? Lawyers. Lester Brickman is a professor at Cardozo School of Law and author of the book Lawyer Barons. What do you mean, barons?
Well, lawyers have created a legal system that is by lawyers, for lawyers, and of lawyers. They are the principal beneficiaries of a civil justice system where contingency fees generate litigation. They have enormous incentives to bring litigation, and they make out like bandits in many of these litigations.
We're just helping people, they say, helping the victims. Who but we will do that?
Well, there is certainly some truth to that, but the power that they exert in our legal system is done for their own purposes. It isn't to benefit society, although they claim, of course, that it does, but it's really to benefit themselves. They are barons in that sense.
And just for the record, there are other ways to compensate people. There's private charity, workers' comp. There are other mechanisms.
We are the only country in the world in which our method of compensation is based upon contingency fees, that is, payments to lawyers as a percentage of the recovery. When you couple that with the jury system and with punitive damages, we have the most expensive compensation system in the world, by far.
All right, let's talk about compensating the rescue workers. The settlement was $700 million, this last one. How much of that did the plaintiffs' lawyers get, the people who supposedly represented the workers?
Immediately, of that $712 million, $625 million is getting paid out immediately. And the lawyers are getting about $156 million out of that. There is still another
Don't the judges say this is too much? It should go to the workers?
The judge did, in fact, intervene, and the fees were reduced to 25%. But that's still an enormous fee. And then when you add in the dispersal of the remaining $82 million of the settlement, they'll come up with another $15 to $20 million, perhaps. So altogether, they could come up with $180 million, $190 million in that range.
And then there's the government's lawyers, the city lawyers, paid for by taxpayers, and they get millions of dollars.
The city lawyers
spend it.
Have billed over $200 million in defending the city. But in defense of the city, I should acknowledge that the city was faced with enormous potential liability. They had to hire high-end lawyers.
They had to do this. And they hired the $500 an hour guys, the barons.
The barons and the plaintiffs' lawyers collected every conceivable person into the suit that they could, including thousands that had no credible claim whatsoever. And the city had to deal with every one of them.
The more clients they get, the bigger shot they have of making a lot of money.
And the more it costs to defend.
And what do you mean some of them were not entitled to money?
Well, at least 3,000 of the 10,000 could show no injury of, of any kind, really.
800 about say we have cancer, and my heart goes out to them. But you have a problem with them deserving money.
Well, there is no credible basis for compensating the hard tumor cancer claims.
Because it takes longer to get cancer.
There's a latency period. That is, the time between exposure to the toxic material and the time that you manifest with injury is generally about 20 years or 30 years. So it is virtually impossible medically to establish that anyone who manifested with cancer at this point can attribute that to 9/11.
And at the moment, are cancer rates higher among the New York City rescue workers than the average population?
No, and you wouldn't expect that, simply because you haven't had enough time go by. But it's also true that death rates do not indicate any particular outcome from 9/11, from the cleanup. But again, it's too soon. Today, The compensation system puts compassion above science.
It's too soon, but that doesn't stop the lawyers.
No, it does not.
Thank you, Lester Brickman. Coming up, as we contemplate life without lawyers, scam artists caught on tape. The woman on this horse said, "I can't work because of an injury." But she looks pretty healthy. The full story next.